Welcome back to Bread and Butter, where we are serving up the basics for Hearthstone improvement. This is episode 112. I am Tito, as always, joined by my partner, Pylet. Pylet, how are you today?
Doing well. Ready to talk some new cards and new standard.
Fantastic, as am I. So what have you been doing inside Hearthstone since we have all these new cards to talk about?
Yeah, so I've mainly been playing the Brawl for the past week. Really enjoyed how they've been doing that. Started off a bit slower. Just couldn't quite put together the right deck list. So I had a couple 2 and 3 win runs. And then after that, I've run off mainly 6 wins with the decks I've played. So I got 6 wins with Imbue Paladin, Imbue Druid, Starship DK, which most people have probably seen a lot of if they played the Brawl. Draenei Warrior, because I brought that back from the last Brawl that I got 6 wins with, and it's still good in this very limited format. Dragon Warrior, and then I had a 5 win with the Nebula Shaman that probably would have been 6, but I had a soft disconnect and I didn't realize it until I was waiting for the rope and then saw them dragging minions towards my face after it should have been my turn. So probably could have gotten 6 there, but ended with 5 because of that disconnect loss. Had a lot of fun with it. It's definitely an interesting format, which we'll talk about later. But had a lot of fun with the different decks and playing around with new cards. I did end up climbing to Legend yesterday. I didn't know if I was going to play much Standard or just wait till the new set came out, but I decided to give one last run with Sith Mage because I've really enjoyed that deck and missed that deck. So just played a few games with that, but went a very easy 3-0 with killing people on turn 7. 0 mana Snake Oil is really good. And then finished the climb with Sludge Lock and had something like a 12 and 3 win rate. Just ridiculous how good that deck was. Kind of forgot how good it was. I went into it thinking, oh, this probably would have been fine if they would have under some of these after some of the new cards came out. No, it's a good thing they kept that nerf. That deck was still really, really good and really, really powerful. What have you been up to?
I haven't played 1 minute of Standard. I still around D4. I was D2 and then I went back down to D5 and I'm like D4, D3, something like that. But the Brawl came out and I said, I'm going to spend all my gold and I'm just going to brawl and I'm going to have fun because I'm excited. But I haven't spent all my gold. I think I still have like 600 gold left and I'm in the middle of a run, but we'll talk about that. I started off a little differently than you. I started off with 4 and 2s and 5 and 1s, but no 6s for a while. I played a lot of I played my first couple games were with the Paladin, which is a lot of fun. The Imbued Paladin. And then I got into Dragon Warrior, which was also a real lot of fun. Played a little bit of Warlock, which was fun. Not really sure about my direction on that one, but I didn't net deck until the end. When I got to last night and I said, you know what? I still don't have a 6 win yet. I need at least 1 for the Twitter. So I took No Hands Leech List, which he went like something like 42 and 2 or something like that. But I took it and I went 5 and I won 5 and then I won 6. So, and I'm currently on my last run. I was playing before the show started. I am, I believe, 4-0. Well, on my way to my last 6 wins. That deck is fun, at least in its iteration that it is for the Brawl, which we will again get to in a few minutes. What have you been doing outside of the game?
So we were on spring break for school last week. So got to enjoy some time at home, remembering what my house looks like and spending time visiting, my couch and my bed. Didn't do a whole lot. I had state bowling tournament to start it. That was a very humbling experience. It was set up in a way that was not conducive to my strengths and just wasn't bowling well enough to adjust to it. So I stayed around my average, which is good for bowling poorly, I guess, but shows that I have a lot to learn. Other than that, been trying to fill some time here waiting on the new expansion, playing some other games. I think I mentioned last time I started Chrono Trigger to play along with Squelch. Got through the first quarter of that game or so. Been playing a little bit of Forza. Finally had some time to play some games with my brother, so we hopped on some Overwatch and some Sea of Thieves again this past weekend, which we haven't played Sea of Thieves in like 4 or 5 months just because of life. But yeah, I kind of took advantage of the kind of lull before the expansion. The Brawl kind of filled a lot of that, where normally I wouldn't play much at all the week before, so it's probably a win for Team Five. But I always like to take this time right before, especially rotation, to disengage, refresh, and come in ready to go once the new set fully launches.
Sounds good. Yeah, I can't. I will usually like to play the Franken meta, but again, this time with the brawl, I don't think I need to. I wish they kind of staggered it because it's like there's too much good eating right now. So you got to make your choices, and I just chose to do the brawl. I thought I was gonna run. I thought I would run out of gold and then switch to the meta, but it just didn't happen. I have been just working, doing my thing, going back and forth to New Hampshire. I'm glad, and that's not a complaint. I am very happy to be having the work and doing the work. And although I still have a long way before I can actually do my job technically, but that's a whole nother story. Outside of that, my dad has been going through cancer treatments, and he had a procedure in December. I think I talked about that. I'm pretty sure I talked about that. But he just finished up radiation and chemo today. We saw him this weekend. He's doing pretty good. He's a little bit sleepy, but it's an aggressive type of cancer, and all signs look good right now. And we'll see what happens in the scans in a few months. But it was nice to come. So I drove from New Hampshire, from Rhode Island to New Hampshire on Friday, back down to Mass on Saturday, back to New Hampshire on Saturday, and then back down to Rhode Island on Sunday. A little bit of driving, but listening to the Dark Tower series, which I really like. I'm on book 7 right now, trying to figure out what I'm going to listen to next when that's done, because those are one of those ones you go into and you're like, this is going to take a while. It's not taking as long as I thought it would. It's only taken a couple months because with these long drives, I've been listening to them and enjoying them. I think I've already I think I put on more mileage this year than I did in 2024, which, when you're working from home or not working is not is very surprising. But outside of that, I usually play Civilization on Friday nights on stream, and it's just basically a chill thing. I playing with my friend Justin. We're not really worried about. I'm not really worried about doing anything except we're just playing, and if we're gonna hang out, maybe some people chat. And we just finally finished up our first game of Civ 7. Don't really understand what's happening yet, but I think we've started to get some ideas. I was looking today. Apparently, Civ 7 is not doing as well as Civ 5 is on Twitch right now. So they got some work to do. It's definitely an early process. It'll be a fine game, but it's done. But I think we talked about this before. It'd be nice if like these games released ready, and this one feels like half baked. I'm enjoying it, and not as much as Civ 6. I'm enjoying it. I'm gonna keep playing it. I hope it's gonna get better. It will get better, but for the money we're spending on it, we should get the full game when you release. But that's not what we're here to talk about. This is not a Civ podcast. We're here to talk about Hearthstone. And we just had a brawl, and this is the second time they've done the pre-release brawl. Um, this brawl I think has been really fun and different. So last time we had the brawl, they had we saw a lot of Mech Warrior, and we saw a couple decks that had no new cards, and it just kind of it took away from the event because it was like people were farming decks and packs, and it was fine. I mean, it's understandable if you don't have a lot or if you just want to farm it. That's what was set up. But it was kind of disappointing because you wanted to try the starships and you wanted to do all the fun things, and it's like, well, no, I just lost to Unkiliax. Great again. So that was kind of a bummer. So this time we had a very limited set, and they took out not only most of the sets. We just had, I believe it was core. It was the anniversary set. It was the Starship set, minus the mini set, so there was no StarCraft in there, and the new cards. And I liked it a lot because it made us focus on the new stuff for sure, because that was most of it. It gave us the old core. So we weren't playing with the core that we're getting as of tomorrow. We're playing with the old core. So this was a nice way to experience the new cards without really kind of already feeling like the meta is going to be solved tomorrow, because we don't have mind control tech. We don't have like a lot of the cards that you're seeing in the core are gone, and now we're gonna get all the other cards back so you can see what people put together, and I think it's interesting. What do you think about the format compared to the last format and how we'd had this very like limited format?
I think they did a great job at striking a balance. I know that was one of their stated goals. This is only the second time that they've done it, so they're still learning and figuring out what works best for the whole community. Because especially those of us who talk on podcasts and listen to podcasts, we kind of form this very small little group of these super highly engaged people to where by day 2 or 3 of the brawl, we know exactly what the best kind of brawl decks are. And there's people out there who have no idea that the brawl was even going on, probably. And they found out halfway through. So they have this huge spectrum of player base. I think it did a really nice job at kind of striking a balance between those. I still feel like a lot of the strongest decks didn't use a lot of the new cards, but I think that there is more variety that I was seeing until the very end. It got very Death Knight heavy towards the end. I think both of my last 2 runs, most of my opponents were Death Knights, and people kind of figured that out. But we saw a lot of Starships featured, which have not been played in Standard at all, especially because most of them were Demon Hunter and Death Knight, and those haven't been around at all. So I still think that there is a decent focus on the older set compared to the newer set with what we were building most of the deck around, but you still saw quite a few new cards, and there was enough variety there, even though the card pool was more limited. I found that very interesting. I think that'll be interesting what they do for leading into set 5 of the year, if they're going to keep up with this kind of 2-set thing. I could see them maybe pulling something else, maybe if they want to stay with 2 sets rather than doing Emerald Dream and the next set, do Whiz Bang in the next set or something, if they're able to see some synergies across one of the sets from last year core and the upcoming set. It opens up a lot of possibilities for them to make this limited format still interesting without giving away what the meta is going to be a week early.
To be fair, the Death Knight, which we did see a lot, and obviously I was playing at the end there. It was Starship heavy, but I think the real focus was support for leeches, and the whole point there was like, hey, let me find ways to make sure that I can leech and keep them alive and all that. So
Yeah, the leeches were very, very good.
yeah, I think they're pretty good. They're fun. We're gonna hate them soon. That's always the thing that happens, right? It's like you're like, oh, this is really good, and then you're like a week later, you're like, so many leeches. We need to do something else. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that. But what did you have the most fun playing in the brawl?
Um, I I don't know if I played a deck that I didn't like. I think the only one that I didn't like playing was the Bounce Rogue, because I never drew the right cards early on, so I wasn't doing anything until turn 5. So I think that was the only one that I didn't like, and it wasn't the deck, it was just my poor luck on that run and me not paying attention, because I think I played when I was tired that day, and it was poor. That was one of my 2-win runs. The Imbue Paladin impressed me a lot. I thought that it was going to be okay, but I definitely think that it was a lot stronger than what I thought, just as this constant wave of value, especially in the late game. I think my Paladin run was the one where like 6 of my 8 opponents were Death Knights, and I was outlasting them. Just because, other than the one that got leeches early, they played every single leech card by turn 7. I lost that game. I had 5 max health on turn 7. It did not go well for me. But other than that, I was still in that game for another like 5 or 6 turns until I finally got through. But I was able to outlast them just because you have wave after wave of dragon. And I think that that's a deck that you have more opportunities to refine it once we hit standard meta. So that's probably the one that I was most excited for. But I really enjoyed all of the new stuff, actually.
The Paladin deck, I like playing that too. I have concerns that I don't, and we've talked about this, and I could be wrong, I still feel like it's going to be too slow because pushing that hero power button takes mana and time, and that was kind of what didn't do things well for uh what do you call it? When we first had the hero power abilities in Goblins versus Gnomes or whatever.
Oh, that was before my time.
Yeah. I will inspire. We had inspire, which was, hey, you use your hero power and this happens. And there was only a couple cards that we really played out of that. And then for the not the brawl, for the not duos, for the twist, they
Yeah.
redid a bunch of those cards and had them on battle cry, and they were better, but a lot of them still didn't see play. So just pushing that hero power is, and some of them did see play. I understand a couple of them did, but pushing that hero power takes time, and it's usually the last thing you want to do. Now, in other decks like the the mage, it makes sense because you're doing damage, you're creating wisp, you're creating things to die. There's a lot of synergy there. I don't think the priest is going to be that strong, at least early on. If you could discover, or if you could get a card that you could play that turn, like, hey, I can guarantee you can play this card this turn, then maybe. But I don't know if that's going to be okay. Hunter seems good, but it just still seems slow in Paladin, and it's powerful, like you said. I really think you can do a lot of fun things with it. I could be wrong, but we'll see. I hope there's enough control tools there to survive, or like you said, there might be. You told me this off air. You think that maybe we can build it a little lower to the ground and a little more aggressive, and I think that could be fun. One thing I do know is that legendary that casts spells from your hand, casting a pyroblast for free every turn is really good. That heals you, but also Crusader's
Hmm.
Aura every turn. Because after you play Crusader's Aura, then it casts a Crusader's Aura again. Now you have two Crusader Auras on, and then the third one. So you can really snowball with that if you have the Crusader, have him cast the Crusader Aura. So that was fun, and that made it a little harder to manage your board.
Oh my goodness. It's probably a good thing that the mini bots are rotating to randomly get Wind Fury with that on your board. Yeah, it's a good thing that that's going away with Titans. That's gross. I did not think of that.
That sounds. I'm surprised because that feels like a very pilot program thing to do.
It
Um,
does.
I really liked Warrior. That was fun, and so this is why I didn't have a lot of 6-win runs, is because I insisted on playing Spore Master, whatever the Spore guy is, that shuffles 7 spores into your deck at the beginning of a game, and it casts 5 mana. It casts the 5 mana guy, and then it casts another 5 mana guy and the previous one. And I'm like, when am I ever going to have a chance to actually play this in a competitive format? And it was fun, and occasionally won me some good games, but it wasn't a 6-win deck. It was a 4 to 5 win deck.
That started to catch on later on. I saw it more times after you played it. I ran into it a couple times because I wasn't paying attention at the start of one game. And then I'm like, where did this minion come from? I'm like, what is this? Because they rolled the very first one, rolled the new 1/5 poisonous with the death rattle, deal 1 damage. They rolled that off the first one when I was playing probably imbue something and trying to stick big minions. I'm like, what? I have to go through this every single time they play a spore. It was miserable. And I'm like, where did this come from? And then they played like the third or fourth one. I eventually figured it out.
So were there any so again, we're not expecting anything that came out of the brawl to be in its form when we start. But was there any kind of deck archetypes that were in the brawl that had you kind of like a little worried, like, there's gonna be a problem in the expansion?
Um, Death Knight worries me, but that's more of just because I'm not a big fan of playing against Blood DK. I feel like Blood DK is coming back with a possible vengeance here. They got some good cards. They do lose Soul Stealer with the core set rotation, and that might be enough to kind of temper it back down. But DK is the one where I'm a little bit worried about, but not overly worried about.
I was worried about Druid, and that was because the imbued Druid, and that was because I saw it a decent amount on day one, and with the decks I was playing, they happened to be they got out of control, and it seemed really easy to because their imbue isn't like the other imbues where you have to play the cards, and I think you still can play the cards, but their imbue
Hmm.
was cast spells, and you just get bigger and bigger and bigger minions, and I was worried about that day one, but then I kind of stopped seeing Druid. So it might have just been that it was good against me and not good against everything else what I was playing at the time. So I was worried about that. I'm not necessarily worried about that anymore. But yeah, it was that was about it. Like everything else felt balanced or whatever outside of Death Knight, which is a little strong, but we'll have to see what happens there. Um, we already talked about how we like the. I think this brawl was better than the last one. I think you agreed on that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
so do you have any thoughts? I think you already mentioned what you thought they could do with the different sets. Is there anything else you think they could do to improve this for the next time?
Um, yeah, I think just being opening up the idea of looking at different sets, I think could be interesting. Kind of treat it more like when they're trying to curate like the arena sets. Obviously not quite that many, but being open to not being back to back sets is something that might make things interesting, at least for the week, which is I think the whole purpose of the brawl. It's you want to be able to play with the new cards and do something that sets up the new cards for success and to see play. But that could create some interest to where it might be something to where, hey, a lot of the classes have some synergy in Whizbang or in Perils or whatever. Perils might not be a good one to throw in because of Tourist. I would probably not do that one. That could get weird very quickly. But it just opens up some other possibilities, I think. But I'm confident that they're going to keep looking at feedback and iterating on it to keep it a solid event right before the expansion when most people had been kind of checking out for a week.
Yeah, and I don't think they could do this because of technical reasons, but I think it would be fun is if like Tuesday and Wednesday you had the Great Dark Beyond, Thursday and Friday you had the only set you had was Whizbang's Workshop, and you rotated, but you still only had one set or one and a half sets or whatever it might be. But like they changed a little bit over the time, so you wouldn't have this kind of ending brawl, which was,
Hmm.
I mean, this ending set where the meta's kind of getting figured out. It's like, oh, let's see what these cards can do. Let's see what these cards can do, and all that. So I don't see that would happening. But I think that could be
Yeah,
fun.
I think the only limitation to that would be runs that go over multiple days. Like if it resets on Friday, if someone starts to run Thursday night and doesn't finish it, does it just end or does their deck become invalid? Because they might have the tech for it because they did that one twist season where each day they added a new set. So the tech could be there for it. I think the fact that it's set up with the runs and you lock in your deck is where the issues would come in.
I think you just if you are still in a run, you just have that deck and you face against different decks because it's just a brawl.
Yeah.
It's low stakes. It's not like it's like a 12 win. You get like all these golden packs and all that. It's just they want you to play. They want you to spend your gold. They want you to spend all your gold. So you have to buy the season pass with real money or whatever. But which is great. I mean, I still think this is the greatest way to you want my gold, you want me to spend stuff, like, this is perfect. But, yeah, I think that that's one thing they could do that would be fun, and if you happen to like, "Hey, I'm still on Whiz Bang and you're on Great Dark Beyond, so we have this really weird matchup, who cares?" Whatever.
Yeah.
It's only 6 games or at most, what, 9 games? So, 8 games. What do you think about Dark Gifts? Good or bad?
I think dark gifts are solid. Other than Warlock, you don't build around it, obviously. Warlock, you build an OTK with Wallow, but anything that says charge, you click it. But any deck that wanted to run some of the value discover neutrals before, like Scarab Keychain, Venomous Scorpid, things like that, I think you just swap in the dark gift cards because they felt solid every single time I played them. Couple times you get something awkward to where you get 3 mediocre minions and the effects are kind of on the wrong ones. But normally you're still able to make something out of them in some way. So I think that they're going to be solid, and I think that we're going to see a lot of them this set in 4 set meta, and they'll probably fade out as we go, like most of those neutral discovers typically do. But some of the targeted ones I think will probably stick around. DK has one where you discover an undead. I think that that'll stick around probably longest because anything that has undead synergy, you just run that in and get an extra bonus on it. But yeah, I think they're solid, but not overly powerful, thankfully.
I don't think you always take charge because once I got a 0-2 egg with charge, and that wasn't going to be useful in any way.
You do with Wallow.
Yeah, fair.
That's the only deck where you take the 0-2 charge egg.
No, but the +5, +6, the next card on your top of your deck. If you get that on turn 1 or 2, and you get it on a like a 2 or 3 mana card, that's gross, and that really can swing a game real
Yes.
fast.
It's much better than I expected.
Yep, and we already talked about imbue. I think it'll be interesting to see if it's actually going to be powerful or if it's going to be weak out of the gate, and see what they do around that. But
Yeah. I think if you're trying to play imbue as your win con, I think it's going to be weak. I think if you're trying to play it as a support part of your deck, I think you're going to be a lot better off just from what I have seen. I think the only exception is Druid. I think Druid, you go all in on spells, anything that generates cheap spells, spells on spells, you do that and then throw in enough minions to kind of help support that. One thing that I saw brought up from in Coin Concede was running the escape pod, the 2/1 rush that gives Death Rattle your adjacent minions get rush. I think that that's something that you should be playing in that deck because now instead of just stat piles, it's stat piles that swing the board back, which is what that deck struggled most with. Paladin, I think you go all in on imbue, but it's still only 8 cards, 7, 8 cards that you're kind of going all in on, and then you use the rest to fill things out. Mage might be the only one that you'd build it as a win con, but we'll talk about Mage. Mage imbue is super interesting to me, and I guess Hunter, if you're going King plush, make a giant cheap plush to OTK them. That's kind of a win con, but it's still you have to build other stuff around it. So I think that that's where if you set your expectations for imbue right, I think that it's going to feel okay, but I think we originally thought that is going to be this is your win condition, and I don't think that is that. I think it's a support to your win con.
going back to Dark Gifts for 1 second, there was this one card that I kept generating. It was from the Dark Beyond, and it was this like charged starship piece that gave minions next to you +1/+1 when it died, the death rattle. And I kept getting like it had reborn on it too, I think. So I kept generating that and playing that. And I was like one of those ones like I've never seen this card played. Like, did we sleep on this card? Because now all of a sudden when you're generating it, it's been really successful. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, Escape Pod. Yeah, that's the one that I was talking about. I think you run that in Druid, and I was starting to. I actually put that in that Death Rattle Warlock that I was messing around with before Franken meta, and it's solid. It's not a bad card. I think that's one that we slept on a little bit. It's not great, but it's something to where if you have a tokeny deck, I think it's something you can look at.
So before we get on to the set, which drops tomorrow, I'm hopefully going to have this out tomorrow because I don't want to have editing this podcast lingering over my head while I want to just play with the new cards. So, but I don't think we talked about theory crafting on the pod yet because I think last time we had World 8 on, right? So that was before the theory crafting.
Correct.
That was fun. So I had guests join me. I had Just a Guy join me at the beginning, and then Pylet eventually came on, and World 8 joined us for a while. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I really honestly felt like I had just sat down and then poof, 8 hours later, it was, like, we gotta stop playing because that was an absolute blast. Uh they had a not a bug, but they didn't realize that when they started the games, when you logged in and you started playing, that you were in casual mode. And that's not an option they usually have. It took me a while to realize, I'm like, I'm only seeing the same few people. And like I kept seeing Smarms, I kept seeing like three other people. I'm like, what is going on? And then I'm like, Pilot was, hey, are you in casual for a reason? As oh, yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? So once we figured that out, it was fun. We already talked about kind of the decks. I played pretty much everything. We tried. I wasn't focused on winning, and I was just focused on I want to play fun cards and do fun things. I didn't. It didn't. Winning didn't matter that day. Winning's fun, and there were certain people I would like to win against, but I didn't care. I just wanted to play fun cards, and I think we had a good time. Gave away some codes and had a blast. So thank you, Blizzard, for giving us those codes, and Hat for taking care of us because that's just a lot of fun. You have any thoughts on Theory Crafting before we move on to the Emerald Dream?
No, not really. I just kind of tuned in for the end of it, and I was a little bit hit and miss just because I think I was trying to work on some other stuff at the same time since I didn't have to pilot the decks. So it seems like there is a lot of variety this time, which is always good. People kind of focused on you always have some people that they're going to play the same deck for 6 or 8 hours straight, and it kind of ends up getting somewhat refined. But I feel like you saw a decent variety of stuff once we got out of casual.
I enjoyed Warrior. That felt really good, the Dragon Warrior, and Shaman was fun because you could do some wonky things. And overall, I mean, I just had a blast. Paladin was fun. Rogue, I couldn't get working. Rogue felt like it didn't have a win condition to me, but it's like, hey, we get to do a lot of cool things, and then we can really kind of mess them up. But like, then how do we finish off the wind? With that was at least we'll talk about the Rogue in a minute. So we're gonna go through each class, and we're not going to really like we're not going to go into too much detail. We're not going to spend hours here. By the time we've released this, you're already gonna be playing with us. So we're just going to generally talk about high level thoughts, maybe some decks, old decks that might still be viable, new decks that we're excited to play, and just kind of some high level thoughts. So let's go ahead and start off with Mage. So with Mage, I think we're obviously going to be wanting to play Imbue Mage because that's going to be, like we said, that's going to be its own thing. Protoss is probably still going to be a thing ish, maybe. What else we got in Mage? I think you were talking about maybe there's a little casino Mage action happening.
Yeah, we've started to get enough generation stuff in Mage to where you could probably build a casino Mage. It's probably not good. So that's a good thing for probably most of you listening who don't like playing against those kinds of decks. But it is something that might be there if that is a style of deck that you enjoy. If you're a casino Mage, Thief Rogue type player, we did get some decent generation stuff. This set probably have enough that you could build a whole deck around it. Protoss, I think, will still be around and fine. Imbue is, like I said, Imbue is where it's most interesting to me because I feel like you can build 3 or 4 different Imbue decks, and I think that they'll all have a decent amount of power. It'll be kind of which one adapts to the meta the best, because I've seen a lot of people talking about a more low to the ground playing Imbue with the Paladin Tourist, and then you just board after board, the hero powers doing damage and summoning Wisp. You're playing spells with not Lanessa, but I can't remember who it is at this point. Playing spells with the Tourist to build a board and kind of going a more aggressive route. I'm interested in doing Imbue with a big spell package. We still have that from Perils, and all the Imbue stuff for Mage are minions, I believe. So you can still curate your deck in that way to go minion heavy for the beginning of your curve, big spell later on. And I think that there's probably going to be something kind of more in the middle that's more control-y. A control Mage, I saw that VS posted one of those also. So Imbue Mage, I think, has the most potential to see play in a lot of different decks in a lot of different situations. It's just going to be, does it get refined in a way, or does it get refined enough before people kind of give up on it? Because I feel like that happens sometimes where these decks that people are like, this has a lot of ways to go, but we don't know which way to go with it yet. It kind of bounces off the meta for too long, and it takes too long to come back, and then people never make their way back to it. So that's probably going to be my first deck, as long as I actually, well, I'll be able to craft the cards. I didn't open any of the mage cards that I needed to play it in the brawl, which was upsetting. But yeah, Imbue's going to be very interesting. I don't see anything else really sticking out for mage, though.
I zoned out a little bit there because you were talking about decks that bounced off the meta and never kind of got there. Was that like Black Rock and Roll Warrior or maybe Earthen Paladin?
Yeah,
Although,
Earthen Paladin had a
a
couple
hot minute.
days. It did. I forget who was playing it, but it came into its own for like a solid 2 days and then faded right back out.
I was playing it. It actually became good when we had the rogue cards that would replay minions or from a different class or whatever it
Oh,
was.
yep.
That's when it got good. So it wasn't, well, not good, playable ish. Tier 3, maybe tier fun, but enough. I love the Earthens. We were one card short. Like they needed to just add one more card in the mini set that really supported it, and I think we would have been off to the races. But it is what it is. So let's move on to Warrior and Mage. I want to play Imbue too. We'll see what happens. Protoss might be still interesting, but and Casino, if it's good, is Casino Mage when it's good is one of those decks that just really annoys the crap out of people, which is fun and also annoying. But Warrior, so I think we have a bunch of different ways to go with Warrior. We have dragons, which you can possibly be big dragons, slow dragons, mid-range dragons, tempo dragons. I think there's a lot of ways to go with that. You can still have Terran, which is probably still good even with the nerfs, especially in a 4-set meta. There's still mech synergy. I mean, we're losing some mech synergy, but there's still mech synergy out there. We have eggs now, and we have a little bit of a package for almost like an enraged kind of thing going with eggs and tokens and stuff like that. So Enzo will be happy. And let's not forget, there's still Draenei out there, and Draenei weren't so bad in the brawl. And maybe they're good in the 4-set meta. I say hopefully, but knowing that I'm probably wrong. So I really enjoyed the dragon stuff. It was fun. That dragon, you have a dragon that the legendary, it dies and it summons a minion, and then the next time it dies, it summons 2 minions. You have a way to bring back dragons with a 3-mana spell, and there's also just other ways that it comes back. So I thought that was fun. I played a few games of that, like I said, with Spore Master. Don't play with Spore Master. It's not a good card, especially in a real, well, I mean, just play with it if you want to have fun, but like don't play with it and say, like, why am I not winning? You're not winning because you're playing Spore Master. Um, I think I want to play eggs. I want to play Draenei. I want to play Dragon. Warrior looks fun to me, and it doesn't feel like. I mean, I'm kind of happy we're rotating out of the Odin meta. I really hope we're not going to see the hydration station type decks in that with it, Ziliax is nerfed. Unkillax is no longer a big threat. Having to kill it twice is this big deal. Bringing it back once is not that big of a deal. But I really kind of hope we're not stuck in that same kind of the best thing to do with Warrior is to just bring back Ziliax multiple times and go from there. Uh, I think I don't know how viable they are, but I think all these warriors look fun. What are your thoughts on Warrior there?
Yeah. I wish that there was more in the like egg and enrage package. I feel like that's something that is setting up more for later this year. Just because we got the early teases of we got the enrage cards in core, we saw Egg Basher right away. And it's like, yes, we're getting enraged, and then we got nothing else to go with it, other than the location that makes a dragon egg. So felt a little underwhelming there, but I think that it's still something that you can just put some of those cards in decks. Egg Basher is really good. I played more of a tempo focused dragon deck that I got from Magesa. And I didn't have the location. I didn't open it, so I played 2 Egg Bashers. Excuse me. And that's just a lot of stats. I mean, four attack on a minion that's permanent, and it's a 3/5 body. That card is really, really good. So we'll see there. I will say, for those of you like me that are hoping Draenei Warrior success continues, I had a lot of success with it in the last brawl also, and we see how much that had in standard. I did win with it. I think I had a positive win rate with it in standard the little bit that I played it. I did have a moment of pride and joy when I saw other people posting their ones from this brawl, and they were playing Dwarf Planet. Because I'm like, yes, there's more of us. There are dozens of us now. And they're like, hey, this card's really good in this deck. I'm like, yes, it is. Thank you. So I felt very validated there. That card is a lot better than it looks when you can make it cost 5 and not 10. It's still okay for 10, but it's a lot better at 5. So take that with a grain of salt. It might be better in a 4-set meta, especially with other things slowing down. Its big problem was you couldn't keep up with the faster decks. It does a lot of damage really quickly if it gets the chance to, but I don't know if we'll have that opportunity because there's a lot of dragons and new stuff that say taunt, and that deck doesn't like taunts. So Dragon Warrior, I think, is going to be the fun one to play around with, because I did see a good variety of tempo versus control. I really wish that we could make like a hydration station that wasn't just focused on bringing back Unkiliacs constantly, because some sort of big warrior with hydration station, bringing back your Cassandra and some of the bigger taunt minions they introduced last year, is a type of deck that I want to play, but it's just not the best use of that card, so it hasn't really made it anywhere yet. Maybe there's a chance now. Maybe they've nerfed Ziliax enough that people start to play around with it. But now that they had to make Hydration Station cost 10 so that Druid stopped committing other crimes and Warrior stopped committing those crimes also, is probably a dead card.
Yeah, Beach Whale's still a card out there with a 420, and it's going to take a while for the leeches to kill that, even if they're doing 3 at a time. Warriors real fun. I had one interaction where I used the location to copy an egg, and I mean to copy a dragon. So it was I believe it was the dragon that it deals 3 damage to all your minions, but then 3 damage to all their minions on a death rattle. And someone hex mine, which they hex the actual dragon, and then I popped the egg expecting to get the dragon, and I got the frog. So I don't know if that's a bug or not. I guess we'll find out. But that
has
was really
to be
strange.
A bug.
I think so. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I hope so too, because it doesn't make sense to me. But all right. So let's move on to Druid. I think you can play Imbued, you can play Protoss, you still play spell damage because you still have that Moonkin guy there. You also can probably still play some version of Dungar. Or ramp or whatever, because you still have ramp even though you're losing gift. Remember, all the gifts go away. They were a 1 year, all said and done, including Hearth, but not including Bob. Bob is around for another year. So Protoss spell damage, Dungar, ramp. What do you like in Druid? You think Imbue strong enough? You think Protoss is still good? Because I felt like Protoss really started to come on for Druid towards the end of the last couple weeks, more than it did at the beginning. What do you think?
Yeah. Protoss, as we know it, is dead for Druid because that was a hero power deck, and those are all rotating with Festival. So that deck's going to have to significantly retool to find success again. Imbue's going to be interesting because I feel similar to that as I do with Paladin, to where if stat piles are good enough, then it's going to be very good. I think it has enough stat piles to outlast a control deck, especially later on. The biggest difference with that and Paladin is Paladin, you're typically drawing 2 to 3 of the portals every turn, especially with draw tutors. Druid, unless you're playing sing along buddy, you only get one of the giants each turn. And that is a significant difference because once Paladin gets ramped up, the size of those cards are fairly similar with the big dragons and the imbues. I think that you've got more options to throw in some other stuff with that, with having all the sets available. So you can throw in some of the mage cards with perils with the tourist. And we have some of the other nature spells to where, once you get past the initial start of game condition of just nature spells, it doesn't care what spells you play. You just have to play spells. So a lot of the generation stuff is more valuable there. It's just, it'll have to kind of find that balance between them, I think. But it might be something to where it needs a little bit extra in the early game other than hitting the button. Granted, by the time that you're having the mana to hit the button, you're normally at 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there for stats, which is totally fine for 2 mana on turns 4. If you're playing a 2 mana spell and summoning a 3/3 on turn 4 from it, I think you're doing okay.
Yeah, I think it's fun. By the way, if this is a mage thing, if you happen to there's a mage spell that gives you a choose one between a mage or a druid spell. If you play that, you pick the druid spell, and then you take the druid spell Horn of Plenty. The only nature spell you can get is Teldrassil. So if you
Mhm.
want to get Teldrassil, uh, you'll be able to make that happen more often than not. If that happens. Is it Champion of Argus? They'll give your minions +1/+1 and taunt. Is that still in core? Because I saw that in the brawl. That might be something good to run in that deck just to put between the beef.
Yeah, I think it is, because I think I looked at that because I learned that that's a Draenei, because I almost put it in the warrior deck. So I don't know if it's staying. I don't have that in front of me. I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure.
It does feel like Druid is not going to be all ramp, big minions. As I think we're gonna see some different things. I don't know if we're gonna. Do we have any kind of tokeny druid? Because that's usually what fun. Are we gonna have any? Because treants are all mostly gone, but we still have a couple treant spells.
Yeah, we lost most of the treant support. We did get a little bit of a tease for some tokeny stuff, because we got like Vibrant Squirrel back in core, and we have some stuff from last year, but I don't think we have enough quite yet. It's something that I'll look at because that's the type of deck that I enjoy. But I didn't see anything that stood out to me right away.
All right. Well, I think druid lovers will be okay, and hopefully we don't like. I like it better when druid is not the hey all these big neutral cards or druid cards. So we'll see how that goes. Hunter imbued seems strong. Imbued seems pretty good with King Plush. It seems pretty good with the minion that doubles itself. It seems pretty good with um, just about a lot of things. I think there's a minion that keeps bringing it back from the bottom of the deck. Yeah. So I think Hunter has a lot of options there. It also still has Zerg, which even though the buff Zerg isn't as strong as it was, it might still be okay. Discover package is still there. That's still going to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have tokens and eggs, and hopefully we can get is it Grom working to eat
Or
those minions, Gorm. And you still have some hand buff stuff. So I think Hunter is in a really good place. It has a lot of good things to do, and it's not really going to be limited to. And you still have starships, so I think that you can pretty much do what you want with Hunter, and you're going to be okay.
yeah, yeah, Hunter. We were talking about it before the show. I feel like Hunter just has the best overall set of cards like available to them to pick from. Hunter has a lot of just generically good cards right now, which lets you build a lot of different decks and kind of tweak them around. So you only have a couple that are bad and questionable, like Shepherd's Crook. I did see one of the VS lists that I found very interesting was a change on the hand buff to where you keep the minion pool limited, and one of them is the new legendary Brawl that when you play a spell, it summons an animal companion. So you can reduce that with reserve spot and get that down to 1 mana or 3 mana, get that really cheap, and then just spam spells. I did not think of that, and that sounds like something that I will try and lose a lot with. But it is an interesting little take on that since they've made the Zergling change to where you get the base copy rather than the buff copy.
You're always going to get Leorak, and your opponent's always going to get Huffer. That's just how it works when they do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Sid's going to be happy. I think Ron Mexico is going to be happy. I think they're going to have a lot more to do with Hunter than they've had recently. So I think they're in a good spot. Demon Hunter, on the other hand, I think has interesting things to do, but not as much. So there's some Starship armor things going on with Demon Hunter. I think that's really probably going to be a problem because you get a lot of armor real fast. And not that we can't deal with it, but hopefully those are the kind of games that when people like to play those decks, a lot of us are just like, oh, come on, really? This is what we're doing. Oh, and by the way, with side note, I don't know why we don't have tour guide in the core set, because like if you were ever going to bring tour guide back, it seems like this would have been the expansion for it. But
yeah.
But Demon Hunter, you still have crewmates, which I think are stronger now in a 4-set meta. I think we've been saying that since last expansion. Like crewmates will be better when it's not the most powerful thing to do is much stronger than that. Dreadsteeds it feels kind of like they're just a takeoff of the Hunter ones from back in the day, the Wild Seeds, but I think a little weaker. So hopefully we're not going to go through like 4 or 5 different nerfs on those. We did have a list that World 8 gave us, and I don't think I saw this on the Vicious Syndicate report with Zacho's 45 decks that he released, but it was like a nice little aggro Dreadsteed Demon Hunter list that I think potentially might be good, especially if the meta is a little slower. But I think Demon Hunter is going to be fun. I don't think it's there yet. I think while there might be fun things to do, I don't think it's back. Like it hasn't been good. I don't really feel like since what do you call it? The 3 different things we had. I'm having a brain day today. The not Librams, the relics, yes, because that was a lot of fun.
We haven't had a late game since then.
Yeah, they need to bring, and they need something. Like we don't have any kind of real like strong, like this is what you do in the late game. So hopefully we get there. But I think Demon Hunter is going to be fine. It's going to be fun. I just don't think it's going to be the best thing to do. What do you think there, Pylet?
Yeah, I'm excited to play around with that aggro Demon Hunter, mainly because I don't think it's going to be something people are expecting early, and that felt a lot better than all 3 of us expected during theory crafting. Because especially that 3/3 dormant 1-drop that is dormant until you use your hero power, just drop that early, drop that on 2 in hero power, and that's something that they have to deal with. That ended up being a lot better than I thought. I'm disappointed in the Dreadsteeds. It definitely feels like they wanted to make sure that they were different enough compared to the Hunter ones to not just feel like they skinned them and said, hey, look, here's these cards that everyone liked before, now they're Demon Hunter cards. But I feel like in doing that, they're significantly worse. So the 2-turn one is okay. That's probably the only one that's decent, the one that gives you hero attack. But the other ones are just not good. So we'll see. Maybe we'll be wrong about that. I'm not overly excited for the Starship repeating the armor death rattle stuff, but if that's the way that Demon Hunter gets a late game for the first time in a couple years, I think I'm okay with it being there for a little bit, just so that then we actually have a chance to maybe explore some of the other expensive cards in Demon Hunter, and see what happens they're definitely trying to push, something more late game. I wonder if some of the death rattle stuff kind of ends up in this kind of tempo we deck like we had in the Baron's death rattle, to where you just had a solid curve from 1 up to 8 and killed people with Inquisitors at the end of it. Um, hope hoping that something like that maybe comes back, or some sort of big demon or big death rattle thing, but I don't know if it's going to be there just because it hasn't been there for a while.
Fair. I can see that. So what is Death Knight doing this tomorrow?
So Death Knight to me feels like it has a lot of options similar to Hunter. We saw a lot of starships in the Brawl, but kind of talked about that earlier, to where we saw a lot of things in the Brawl that haven't seen any play in Standard. So whether that will translate over because of a lower power level or not will be something interesting to see. Blood Decay is coming back with a vengeance. They got some pretty good cards in the set. And then we have a little bit of Unholy token support, but I don't know if it's enough to fully make a deck out of. It's something that I'm going to try. The Morbid Swarm, choose one. Even just 1 mana for 2/1/1 ants is a solid turn 1 play. We have some stuff that buff the board. I've seen a lot of people talk about with us getting some Menagerie support, running a Swarm style deck where we have enough dual type minions that you can easily get 2 to 3 different minion types on the board, and then suddenly your Menagerie mugs and jugs and all that just give you a ton of extra burst damage out of nowhere. So those are probably the 3 main things that we're looking at. Death Knight's definitely losing a lot of what it's focused on lately, because we have a lot of the rainbow payoffs are going away, losing the Titan, losing some of those cards, losing Reska. Definitely is going to have to retool quite a bit, but I think it got a pretty strong set to be able to find different things to fill those slots pretty easily.
It's fair. Seems to have kind of not gotten much here at all. There's not a Frost card in the set, so I'm sure we'll see some of that during the year. We also don't have any triple runes right now. I don't think. Well, triple solid 1 color rune. We also lost uh, explosion, so that's going to be interesting. So I think it's going to be fun. I think there's a lot to do with Death Knight. I hope it's not all blood, because as much as I had fun playing with leeches and getting 90 health in the brawl, it wouldn't be my favorite thing if they did that constantly and that was every other game. So we'll see how that goes. But Death Knight seems like it's in pretty solid space overall. Um, Shaman was fun. I played Shaman. I think Shaman's going to be fun. I didn't see a lot of it. I thought I was going to see a lot more of it, but I think that you probably want some of the cards that we didn't have access to really kind of make it good. But you can imbue with Shaman, which is make bigger minions out of what you already have. You can swarm. I think you still have some options for swarming here. I don't think we really have a nature shaman anymore, but I think we
Yeah,
have
that's all rotating.
yeah, we have Big Shaman, which I think there's some potential there. I don't know if we have all the pieces yet, but I think there's some things you can do with Big Shaman. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Um, I don't know. I think Starship Shaman is not going to be as strong as it was, but Shaman to me is always good when it's got decks that can do. Shaman is good when you play good card Shaman. It's just like there's lots of good cards in Shaman, and it doesn't really matter what you do, and you win games different ways. Like Habu Gabu Shaman a couple years ago just did random stuff, and sometimes you won this way, and sometimes you won that way. It feels like there's many win conditions. And I feel like Shaman here is in that same kind of situation. You just have a lot of good cards. And if they can all come together, that'll be interesting. But I don't really feel like I don't think Imbue Shaman is going to be oppressive. I don't feel like Swarm Shaman is going to be impressive. I don't think Big Shaman is going to be oppressive. If you can find a way to merge all of that to just play good cards, I think that could be a problem. But I think Shaman's in a good spot. I think it's going to be fun. I don't think it's going to be oppressive. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Imbue has the most potential to refine. Um, just because you kind of can pick how much you want to go all in on it. The Nebula Shaman that I was playing in the Brawl used a couple of the imbue cards, just because the original list was running Barithra. I didn't have it, so I had something else instead just to kind of fill the curve. But I think imbue has the most potential for refinement, and decide, do we go all in on the cards that were obviously printed to go with it or not. I'm interested to see if we can put something together with a big shaman, mainly because I opened a golden copy of the Wild Beast, the Onara, and that golden card looks really, really good, and I want to play it, and I don't know what to do with it. So I saw some people talking about Dungar, possibly. Since Dungar doesn't care about battle cries anyways, we use Dungar to pull Onara and just cheat out a bunch of stuff early with the Hunter Taurus giving us cheaper battle cries with the location and stuff like that, or Murmur, things like that. Which, if you pull it off, is powerful, but I know Dungar Shaman was something that was around and kind of hit and miss anyways. So we'll see. It'll be interesting, but that's definitely a card that having that for the next 2 years and being able to always look and be like, okay, do we have big cards that we don't care about battle cries? Then Onara becomes very, very enticing to play.
One note on the shaman is when you evolve into something that's bigger than 10, it caps out at 10 now. So
Yes.
you no longer, and there was a few different rule changes that came out in patch, what is it, 32.0.0 or whatever.
Yep.
So make sure you read those. Like when you use a location to create a minion now, you used to not get that minion. Now the location destroys and then it summons the minion. So although I think I saw something that didn't right work properly in that same kind of way where it was, I think it was with Starship Peace, but I don't know. But the rules have changed on some of those things, so you're not going to be able to get the giants or whatnot if they're more than 10. So just keep that in mind. I wonder if that solves some issues that they've had. But Warlock looks fun. What do you tell us about Warlock, Pilot? I know you're excited about this one.
Yeah. So Warlock has, trying to find the cards here. Warlock is focused in as one of the only class that has the Dark Gift payoffs. So that was something that people were playing around with, and definitely I think something that is going to be viable because you can use those cards to survive, and then you kind of build Wallow to be this massive OTK if you can roll charge. So outside of that, they got a couple weird cards. I don't know if they'll find a place or not. Some very slow cards. We have the Wild God, Agamagan, which we'll probably see play in any slower deck. So we might see Wheel Lock come back a little bit, especially if we see the meta slow down as much as what we think it's going to. Then Wheel becomes something that's playable again, even with the nerf. So that's something to watch out for a control. And then, there's a little bit of potential. We didn't get any direct support in the set other than Rot-Heart Dryad, but we did get some big demons back in core. We got Forge Fiend back, the 8 mana, 8/8 taunt, give yourself 8 armor on Death Rattle. So a big demon Warlock with some of the cards we had from last year might be something that starts to come back into play. I know that I saw VS had something for that, and then using Wheel as a backup. If you want to do something more fun instead of more good, you could always do Kill Jaden, and Nemzi will pull a random a random demon from your portal, because the portal works as basically your deck is just always 30 demons. So you can kind of do this endless Nemzi loop. Probably not as good as Wheel, but it's more fun if you want to do something like that. So that's possibly an option. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the Warlock decks kind of retool, because Warlock's losing a lot of really good cards from the standard rotation. We lose Forge, we lose the Fatigue package. So those are definitely holes that will need to be filled, but I think they got a solid enough set to fill some of those at least to have a few playable decks.
We had a game that we played in Theory Crafting, and we played against Wicked Good and Magesa, and I don't remember what happened, but we won the game, and we did something where I forgot. I'm the one who forgot. When you play a minion with the Taurus, it splits, but we had generated a space rock off of a dark gift, and we played
Mhm.
it, and it split immediately into multiple pieces, and for some reason they were stronger. It was really gross. So don't forget about that. I don't know. Warlock was weird. I think it's going to be fun, but I don't think it's going to be intuitive, as it were, except for maybe like an OTK. Um, Speaking of kind of unintuitive, let's talk about Priest. You have a bunch of different things you can do with Priest. You can do Imbue, you can do Tyrande, you can play with Tyrande, which is cast the next three cards from your next three spells twice from your deck.
Yeah.
Um,
The next three spells you play cast twice.
okay, next three spells cast
That's
twice.
battle cry.
You got Aviana, who after 3 turns, cards cost 1. You got Magesa Priest. I'm sorry, Zarimi Priest. You have Protoss. None of this feels good. Like, I don't know what we're so there is an aggro priest right now that people are playing that feels pretty good. I don't know how many pieces we're losing from that. I don't think a lot. I think that's still gonna be viable, but, the imbue feels weak. I think they gotta change some of it, and everything else feels really slow without enough support pieces at this time to really kinda constitute a control priest that will take advantage of it. Now, I say at this time because they're going to get more cards in the next expansion and the next expansion and the mini sets, and then we're gonna be all like tired of control priests by about August. But right now, I think there's priest is kind of one of the decks to avoid or one of the classes to avoid. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the aggro pain priest doesn't lose a whole lot. So that should still be something that you can play around with. The hardest thing to figure out with that deck is draw, since we lose clergy. The only thing that we're keeping for draw in that is Oracle. And with that being nerfed, it's a little bit trickier. Zarimi, I think, got enough dragons from the set to survive the nerf, but I don't know. So that'll be interesting to see. Zarimi definitely slows down with it being played, not summoned. So Clay Matriarch is worse. Tyrande is a card that is going to be very, very good in something eventually. I think that we just need to figure out what that is, but having 3 spells cast twice opens up not only a lot of control potential, but a lot of kill you potential. So I know that there was some imbue priest going around later on in the brawl with using the imbue just to survive and get to Tyrande to be able to cast Moonwell twice and deal 8 to the all enemies, heal 8 to all friendly. That's pretty good. So something with, if you can get the after Saladrasil, having those spells and casting some of those twice, whether it's a nightmare or deal 5, it's just a lot of damage. So that's probably something to look out for. Aviana, I don't think is going to be good. It will be funny sometimes, mainly because some people were generating or stealing Archmage Antonidas, which you can get off of the Champions of Azeroth spell that they introduced as one of the event things. If you cast that twice with Tyrande, I think Zacho said in the deck list, it gives you like a 60-some% chance to get Antonidas. So if you get that and it costs 1 and you just start throwing 1-mana fireballs at people, they just die. So this is the class where Imbue is definitely probably the weakest of it. And I think Priest is the only one that you never go all in on the Imbues. I think you kind of run enough to get it going, and I think you're pretty happy with hanging around 3 or 4 just to make sure that what you're getting is cheap enough to play and feel like it was worth the hero power to get a temporary copy of it. But I think Priest Imbue is the one that if it doesn't land, I think that's the one that we'll see them buff first to make it playable.
Fair. And when Priest ends up being like the best thing to do and we're wrong, please feel free to email the show and let us know. But, it's really impossible to tell at this point. We have our opinions and we have our thoughts, and some things are obvious, I think, and some things are not. But we might be wrong, where everyone's always wrong about something. I kind of hope we're not wrong. But anyway, so Rogue, we have a few different things. We have some kind of combo Rogue where you can bounce things and you have the legendary that locks things in their hand. And every time you do it, it does more of that. That feels fun. You also have a guy you bounce back, and every time you do bring it back to your hand, you summon two mana minions. I wish that kind of increased as you went on, or was a way to increase that, but that seems okay. You can still do some Protoss stuff, which has never been good but fun. There's still some Starship stuff, and I think Rogue Starship has always been kind of underrated because you can do a lot of fun things with that. And then there's a lot of support coming for what I call BS Rogue, what is Thief Rogue, whatever you want to call it. So I think there's a lot of options here. I don't know if any of them are good again yet, but Rogue always finds a way. So, Pilot, what are we doing with Rogue?
Rogue, we talked about a little bit earlier with, the bounce combo kind of aggressive tempo stuff felt a little bit off in the brawl when we played it. I know some other people are having success with it, and I think that that'll be one of the best ways to go with Rogue, at least using the new cards. So that's something I'm excited to play around with. Protoss and Starship Rogue will probably see the bump just because of the meta slowing down a little bit. And then people are going to play Thief Rogue because it got support. I don't know if it'll be good enough. I did have some fun generating the Wild God off of Malorn when I was playing the Imbue decks, including playing it into a Blood Decay where I got 2 copies of their Ceaseless and 3 copies of their Corpse Explosion. That was pretty good. I also got to play it after Kill Jaden, or my opponent played Kill Jaden, so I got random copies of the demons that were in their portal. That card's just weird and goofy if you play it at late game, because their deck is so small, you kind of get extra copies of the same thing, and it can be really good or really bad. But I don't think that that'll be strong enough to be a competitive archetype, and that's probably a good thing.
No, when you get the demons, did they have the increase?
Yes.
Because I would have thought that you draw and then it gets the increase after you draw. So that's interesting.
No, it's the way that it works is it buffs the portal. So at the end of every turn, the portal kind of buffs, so where it buffs everything that's in your quote unquote deck.
Fun. And one thing I learned today in the brawl, or yesterday I learned, because I had a 5-1 run or 5-3 run. And I should have won, but the reason why I didn't run was because I got too greedy trying to wait for all my good cards. They played a Kill Jaden, and I didn't play my Kill Jaden because I wanted to get to my good cards, and then they outscaled me. So sometimes you just got to be aware of that. But Paladin, we've already talked, I think, quite extensively about Paladin. I think we're going to be able to imbue, and I think there'll be a couple different ways to kind of build a deck around that. You think you'll still be able to do some kind of hand buffing stuff. How stronger that's going to be, I don't know. We've lost a lot of our charge from the core set, which is fine. And I don't really know what else we're doing in Paladin. Is there anything else we're doing besides those 2 things?
I cannot think of anything off the top of my head, just because everything else that seems obvious got nerfed. Like they nerfed all the Lanessa stuff by taking away Holy Glow Sticks going face. I think you can still put that Lanessa package into a slower Paladin and it's going to be just fine. But it's no longer your win condition. But Paladin is probably the class that has to search for new archetypes the most, just because of losing some of the hand buff, losing the Titan that I'm blanking on the name of now, Amatus. So it's losing Horn of the Windlord It has a lot of win conditions that are now gone. I think they still have solid sets that you can find something to do with, but I'm not quite sure what those full decks look like yet, other than imbue.
I think with Lanessa, we're playing Lanessa, and then we're playing the card that draws a spell that started in your deck and spell that didn't start in your deck, and getting multiple pulls from
Yeah,
your
maybe.
dragons. So I don't know. That's gonna be fun. But everything we talked about today is probably going to be invalid next week because we'll actually have data to talk about, and we'll see them at it. We'll be like, hey, all those things we said, boy, were we wrong. But I don't think we'll be completely wrong. I say we're probably about 70% accurate, guaranteed.
I'm the one who said that all Zerg decks are going to be completely unplayable and awful when the mini set came out. So I'm fully prepared to be wrong again.
I think we'll be okay though. Listeners, if you want to hear more from us and you want us to have guests on that you want to hear from, which we're going to have guests. It's been a little while. I mentioned this on Twitter the other day, but between my transition to a new job and living in 2 states, between changing co-hosts, between just a bunch of things, new computer system and all that, we haven't really focused on having new guests. We've brought on some of our favorite older guests. In fact, we'll have a favorite old guest next week that will be fun to talk about the new meta and the things that we're doing. But if you can give us a review, hopefully 5 stars, hopefully if you're listening to us after 112 episodes, hopefully you like us. But that helps people find the show, and it really does matter because it's not just like making us feel good, although it does make us feel good. It does help boost the show so that when people search for Hearthstone podcasts, we're one of the ones that people find. So we'd appreciate it if you can. If not, no big deal. Just if you can tell just one person, hey, you want to get better at Hearthstone, or you just want to be entertained, listen to Bread and Butter. Pilot, where can people find you on social media?
You can mainly find me in Discord. My username is Pylet712. That's Pylet. Mainly find me in different Discords. You can DM me there. I'm also on Twitter, but don't check that very often, and it's getting less and less as we go.
And you can find me on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, wherever, at Tito Santana HS. I still stay on X despite everything because I put way too much work in getting the meager following I have, and I do not want to give that up and start over. So onward into the breach. You get any shout outs or anything you'd like to promote this week?
Couple things. One, going to early shout out to the Coin Concede crew, Wicked Good, Megasa, and World 8, as well. Kind of put together a spreadsheet of new decks as they pop up on Wicked Good's website, Off Curve, and I'm sure that they've linked it in the Coin Concede and on his Twitter and Blue Sky as well. But that's a great resource to go to if you're looking for something to play. So they're updating that throughout the first couple days of the expansion. Anything that pops up on social media, on streams, on whatever. Donkey's website, HS Guru, also has all the streamer decks. So lots of resources if you're looking for something to play. If you just want to grab a code and go. So lots of things to find there. And then also a shout out to Tito for having to edit this. Hopefully, listeners, you don't notice anything until I said something now, but we've had to pause 2 or 3 times because of audio issues on both ends and different things that come up as you're recording podcasts. I've randomly lost my mic for like 5 minutes and don't know when or why or how. So hopefully this is the first time that you're noticing that happen. But if not, shout out to Tito for having to deal with it since I don't have to.
And honestly, I want to do a quick edit. So if you hear a little extra noise in the background or whatnot, I'll take care of all the stuff Pilot was talking about. But I want to get this out tonight because as of tomorrow through the rest of the week, I'm just going to want to play Hearthstone, man. It's what I'm looking forward to doing. I'm going to shout out Just a Guy, World 8, Pilot, who all joined me last week for Theory Crafting, which was a lot of fun. No Hands Gamer providing me the list through his social media that actually got me my 6 wins, and especially Hat, who really, this is the time of year where he's always working really hard, but he's probably working double time right now, and he still found some time to stream until like 5 in the morning on Brawl opening night. And thanks to Blizzard for providing codes and hooking us up. It's always fun to give those things out. But everybody, tomorrow we're going into the dream. For now, we're toast though. We'll see you.
See ya.
Slide two brothers meet one another when they slide up to the mic. It's bread and butter with one another. Let's start up that recording light.